a tree.
Well, I was going to say that was a little more than incidental. It wasn't planned, but a squirrel, baby squirrel, fell out of a tree. His name, he was named Oops as a result.
Right.
But he fell out of the tree. We rescued him. We brought him inside, and he fit in your little pocket.
Yeah, he was tiny.
We were feeding him milk from a little eyedropper and nursed this squirrel to health, to a larger size, until this squirrel was a little bit feisty and wild to where we had to release.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show called Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. This is the show where we talk about everything homeschooling, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We want to affirm and encourage you in the decision to homeschool, challenge and inspire you to take it to new heights, and celebrate everything you get to experience along the way in the adventure of a lifetime that we call homeschooling. We're your hosts, Davis and Rachael Carman, and today's show, we have a special guest. And that is
Dixie.
the title of our show, Dixie the Yorkie Poo. So we just got a new puppy, and today's show we're going to introduce her and talk about pets in the homeschool, which are pretty important.
They are.
And even though we have closed our homeschool and graduated all 7 of our kids, we had many a pet, and we're going to talk about several of them, at least all the ones we can remember. And then we'll tell you a little bit about our new little dog, Dixie.
And we'll maybe even mention some that we'd rather forget that we had. But yeah. So this is Dixie, and she's a Yorkie Poo, and she's super fluffy, but I think she's right at 3.5 pounds. So she looks bigger than she is. Have we had her a week?
We've had her 1 week.
We've had her 1 week, and before Dixie, we had a Maltipoo, a much beloved Maltipoo, who was named Flo, and Flo died pretty unexpectedly, I guess 3 months ago. Right. And we've just, especially now that all the kids are gone, we just enjoy having a little snuggle puppy with us. And so we found her kind of unexpectedly. I mean, we were looking, but we really thought we weren't going to get one until after Thanksgiving, because everybody will come home for Thanksgiving, and we were just thinking, I don't think I want to do that at Thanksgiving. But we found her, and she's great, and
we're already in love.
We are, so we're pretty happy with her, and so we are pretty excited. But we really found through the years home educating that having animals, creatures, incorporated into our homeschool was a pretty valuable thing.
Mm-hmm. This is true, and to some degree, this show was also motivated by one of our sons who has 3 kids doing something in their family that we did growing up. They caught a praying mantis, and then they were feeding the praying mantis during their breakfast time by throwing moths inside, and then the praying mantis laid eggs in their peanut butter jar or whatever little terrarium they had, were keeping this praying mantis in. And you sit there mesmerized watching a praying mantis make their egg sac. Yeah. And hundreds, thousands of little praying mantises are going to emerge from that come the spring.
Usually in the spring, yeah. So they'll set that jar out on the back deck and it will overwinter. Yeah. And then in the spring, it's really hard to know when they're going to come out, but to be able to find the little bitty, teeny, tiny praying mantises emerge is a pretty exciting thing. Right. But again, we passed the baton on. So our grandchildren are benefiting, and that probably sounds terrifying to some of you, but we really did that. We thought that praying mantises were probably one of the best pets we ever had. I guess most people don't think of a praying mantis as a pet, but we did.
We kept him for quite a while.
We did.
It was not a short-term thing.
We had one for a long time, like 2 or 3. I want to say it was at least 2 years we had that one. I don't think they're even supposed to live that long, so I can't account for that, except that it was wonderful. And we literally kept them in a terrarium on the kitchen table. And literally, it was a thing in the morning. The kids would go out to the front porch, and who could catch the moth with which to feed the praying mantis and bring the moth in. And while we were eating cereal, we would watch the praying mantis hunt and enjoy their breakfast while we were enjoying our breakfast. So
Oh,
that was
yeah.
one of the pets we did.
Many a homeschool breakfast included watching the praying mantis have their breakfast.
And when it wasn't a praying mantis, another breakfast entertainment thing that we did with creatures was caterpillars. And so caterpillars were usually in the summer. We would get them on parsley, and this is before I got into monarchs. But this was the swallowtails that are all over North Carolina, and so we would find them out in the garden on the parsley, buy some parsley, bring in the caterpillars, put them in a terrarium. And what was glorious about that is, this will date me, but Rice Krispies used to have a commercial talking about snap, crackle, pop. You can hear your cereal talking to you. I can't believe I'm saying this. But we would enjoy sitting there and listen to the caterpillars munch on the parsley. That means you have to be really quiet. And if things tend to be really loud in your house, that was a way to get everybody quiet, because you can actually hear the crunching sounds of the caterpillars with the parsley. No kidding, it's a thing. And so we did that. Other critters, we also did a lot of anoles. I was recently reminded of one time. I used to have a policy that we would do school in the morning, we would do rest time, and then at the very latest at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after rest time. So we tried to be done with school around 1, but we would have 1 to 2 hours of rest time after that, which is another podcast. But I would send all the kids outside at the latest by 3. And our 2 oldest sons sort of got it in their head one time. You had asked them, I think, to move a pile of firewood from one place to another. And in so doing, in obedience, which, we should remind our children that sometimes obedience comes with extra rewards. They were moving that fire pile, and they started discovering all of these anoles. And they came in, kept asking me for peanut butter jars. They caught 43 anoles.
Yeah, the anoles are a type of lizard,
Right.
Small, simple lizard.
And then they wanted to construct their own terrarium or enclosure for the anoles. And they wanted us to put it in the space that we affectionately refer to as the schoolroom. It was just an extra room. And we kept those anoles for a long time, but we discovered that keeping 43 anoles fed was harder than just finding one moth on the front porch for a praying mantis. And so that took me to our local pet store, which you may or may not know this, but you can buy crickets, different sizes to feed your reptiles. And so we did that for not very long, because I kind of called a halt to that, because we had anoles dying because there were dominant anoles and not everybody was eating, and it ended up. But it was fun while it lasted. It was pretty cool.
And I made many a trip to the pet store to get another bag of anoles or another bag of crickets.
Yeah, and then we had some, this will really horrify some. We had a black racer snake one time, and I bought a mouse so that we could watch it track its prey, and we did that.
Yeah, that was more short-lived. That was not a long-term
Yeah, that was like maybe
project.
a day.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long.
It was very short.
That we didn't keep. I was not about having snakes in the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where I personally drew the line. Other incidental pets. Oh, we had a squirrel fall out of a tree.
Well, I was going to say that was a little more than incidental. It wasn't planned, but a squirrel, baby squirrel, fell out of a tree. His name, he was named Oops as a result.
Right.
But he fell out of the tree. We rescued him. We brought him inside, and he fit in your little pocket.
Yeah, he was tiny.
We were feeding him milk from a little eyedropper, and nursed this squirrel to health, to a larger size, until this squirrel was a little bit feisty and wild, to where we had to release.
Yeah. But that squirrel, taking care of that squirrel, that was also in the middle of unemployment. And I just remember that it was just this glorious distraction from all of the stresses and everything else that we had going on.
So true.
And yeah, the squirrel was a pretty cool thing that we did one time.
Well, and not really a pet per se, but we have a creek in our backyard. And so many times when Rachel would send the kids outside, just get outside, go explore the world, they would find the tadpoles. They'd
Right.
bring them. We'd have a whole plastic tub
Right.
full of water and tadpoles. It would eventually turn into frogs. And so you're watching the whole process
Right.
and feeding them, taking care of them, releasing them. Quite the project that was all outside in that case. But one of our sons got into turtles. And so we had two very specialized species. I don't even remember what kind they were,
My
but
goodness.
he
would
bought
want
them.
us to remember.
He
We bought them
bought
from
them-
Florida. We mail ordered them.
Yeah, they came in the mail because they were a special kind of turtle, and then he had them in individual tanks, and he kept these for years.
Yeah.
Cleaned the tank religiously, fed them properly, and when he left for college, he's our youngest. It was very important to him that they get placed into a new home that was, professional on doing this.
Well, because it's important to know that these were such specialized turtles that it would have been irresponsible to just to release them into our local
Right.
pond. So we couldn't do that. We had to rehome. I mean, who does this? We had to rehome turtles.
Right, and so he found a place in eastern North Carolina, and we're in south central North Carolina. He found a place that receives turtles like this and other reptiles, and takes care of them and places them properly back into the wild or into a new home. And so I made two different trips for these two different turtles to get them when they had an opening and officially, quote unquote, the word is to surrender the turtle to this
Right.
new home.
Right. And yet, quite the parent to do that.
Yes, this was after our son was gone, so we were taking care of the turtles, and it was a full-time job, and we were ready to help them find a home and do that last drive to get them to a new place.
Yeah, we also had tree frogs on a couple of an occasion. In fact, for years, there was a tree frog that would appear every, August in our front. Remember in the front porch?
Yes,
And he would sort of camp out
Yes.
right there. He's been gone the last couple of years. I've missed him. But we had a tree frog that was up there. We had the most glorious, even this year we had one, the big garden spiders. And we don't spray with insecticide our lawn. Many of you will know that I raise monarch butterflies. And so because I've done that for several years now, we can't spray the yard with insecticide because it will harm the butterflies. And it also means that you get critters that otherwise would just be killed, and the garden spiders are one. I think the one this year, it was really big.
Yeah,
It
an
was
orb
really-
spider. And we don't bring them inside. We
No.
let them make their web naturally, but we will often, catch some moths and throw them into their webs and stand on the porch and watch breakfast being consumed.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then, let's see, lots of goldfish.
Lots
we didn't
of
do really good with
goldfish.
fish.
No.
I don't know what happened.
Many of them, didn't make it, but they're easy to replace.
Yep.
We had hamsters. We have two hamsters buried in the backyard, and our dog that passed away recently was buried in the backyard here recently.
Yeah.
And Dixie is the new child here that we love.
But we forgot Chester.
Well, I was going to say we're saving one of the best for last, and
yeah.
that's Chester. And what kind of pet was Chester?
A hedgehog.
A hedgehog,
Who
an
does
actual
that?
hedgehog.
It was so cool.
It
Chester
was.
was so cute. Now, in retrospect, I would do Chester very differently, which is, another conversation. But Chester was a hedgehog, and we had friends, if you remember, can't remember their last name right now, but we had friends that actually breeded hedgehogs, so I learned a lot from them. But Chester was ours for
Many years.
several years, and then Chester became really sick. Okay, people, we can't make this up. He became very ill, like deathly ill, on our son, who was the owner, Chester's owner, on his birthday.
His 13th birthday.
And on our son's 13th birthday.
Right.
And I mean, this was the thing. Our son was very alarmed and very upset, and he was an excellent pet owner. Some of your children are probably better pet owners than some. Our daughter, who owned the hamsters, was just the best. Every Monday morning, she cleaned out that cage. Without even being told, she was a great pet owner. And this son, who was Chester's owner, was also a great pet owner. And he came to me this morning, it was his birthday, and he said something's wrong with Chester. And indeed, something was wrong with Chester. Chester was not in good shape. Well, not every vet in town, even in Charlotte,
Right.
will see a hedgehog. You may know that hedgehogs are indigenous to Europe. So this is not their native country, and so not everybody will see them. But we found a small animal vet in Charlotte, about 45 minutes away. And my son and I put Chester in his cage in the car, and we went to go and see. And I think he had a UTI. I mean, I don't remember what it was exactly, but he was very ill and very dehydrated.
Right. Dehydration was now the concern.
Was
at
the
this
big
point.
deal. And so it was not inexpensive to take care of Chester. I mean, we always have a financial limit that we're willing to do with animals. But I think the vet just took pity on us. And so she said, he's going to die if he's not rehydrated. And I was like, yeah, and I can't afford to come in here every day. I don't know if she broke the rules. It felt like she was breaking the rules. But this vet showed me how to subcutaneously rehydrate a hedgehog.
She basically took
Seriously.
a needle and put it delicately under the skin and hydrated this hedgehog
Over the next,
regularly.
yeah, it was like several times a day for the first couple of days, and then I think it went on for 5 days. So my son would sort of lift the skin and right underneath the skin, which, by the way, it's a hedgehog, so the skin is spiky. So this was an undertaking. We were both gloved, and I've got this syringe with this. I mean, that was the thing, and we saved the hedgehog's life.
Rachael Carman saved Chester the hedgehog.
You're
at
welcome.
a great moment that would have been really tough for our son to handle.
Yeah, I think I was my son's hero for the day.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
He was pretty happy about
Absolutely. That was
So
a big deal.
we also one time, if we're going to do all of the creatures we've ever had at the house before now, we were leaving to go on. How many kids did we have? I think we would have only had 4 or 5. Anyway, we were leaving. I was packing up the kids in the car to go, I think, to soccer, and we noticed that a hummingbird had gotten caught in our garage. So the wings of the hummingbird were like this, and there was a shelf, and it was caught, and it was just flapping its wings. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I was able to put on gloves and climb up a ladder, and I was able to get it free, and it just laid in my hands.
It was completely exhausted. Yeah.
And its tongue was laying out, and I was like, I cannot let this hummingbird die in my hands. My kids, all the kids are standing around, and my son, who was all about animals, wanted to be a vet, the whole nine. He said, I'm going to go mix some sugar water. So he went inside, because we had hummingbird feeders in the yard. He goes inside and mixes up some sugar water and puts it in like a Coke bottle lid or a water bottle lid, and brought it out, and he put it in my hand beside the hummingbird. And we tried to put the hummingbird beak into the tongue into this. And I'm here to tell you that hummingbird started sipping on that water, and he sat up, and then he hovered, and he looked around at all of us, and he flew away. These are true stories, people. I can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
And I just think I think if you dare, I'm going to say something really bold here. If you dare to turn off all the screens and literally go outside and wander in the woods and turn over rocks and admire the creation of God and worship Him, I think what we've talked about here today are some ways that He shows off to you.
Oh yeah. Well, and to that very example, one time our sons went on a hike outside, and as they're coming back, they're pretty excited, and they have a stray dog with them that's clearly hasn't been eaten in a while, and is a young puppy, kind of a hound dog, short-haired looking breed. And we took pity on this dog, fed it. It was famished, and sent an email to the neighborhood. Nobody's lost a dog or a puppy. And this was all around Christmas time. I don't remember what year it was, but I decided we got to take care of this dog. So we fed it, took it to the vet, got some shots, no microchip. So we're taking care of this dog for a couple weeks. And the mistake I made was I named the dog. So I named the dog Copper.
You became emotionally attached.
And I became emotionally attached to Copper, but we were not in a position at that time with the kids' ages, with the other pets we had, with the time of year.
Travel. Yeah.
We were traveling. We weren't in a position to keep Copper. And so I was able to find a good home for Copper to go to at the holidays, which probably was a Christmas or a New Year's present for somebody. But I do have a soft spot in my heart for Copper. I wonder how he's doing these days, and kind of wish I was able to keep him at the time. But we just couldn't. Yeah. And part of the point of the dogs. Let me hold Dixie real quick so that people can see Dixie in my hands.
Okay.
She's a puppy, so she is already getting tired. Hey, Dixie, you want to say hi to everybody and tell everybody how much you love me? But dogs, cats, hedgehogs, hamsters, they really are emotional support animals in a lot of ways. But more than that, they're a great part of the family. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I loved about Flo, our dog prior to Dixie, is she would get on the neck of Rachel, of our sons. And I have this great picture of one of our sons when he's maybe 10 or 11 years old, just struggling to focus on his math, but he put Flo on his shoulders and it calmed him down, mm-hmm. and he was able to do his work. And so I've written an article about it. I think pets should be allowed in school. Right. And when you homeschool, they are. They're part of the school experience. They can sit on the kid's lap. They can sit on the floor. They can be on their shoulders if they're small enough. They can go outside when it's time to just run around outside. Yeah. So, Dixie,
they're really good buddies.
Do you agree? Do you think that pets should be part of homeschools?
And obviously, they're really good to teach responsibility, but it still comes down to the parents. I mean, all those years, all those different pets that we had, but we really do believe in the power. And obviously, we've talked today about just a variety of different pets that we had. We think it's unfortunate to limit it just to a dog. But really just a wide variety of things that you can have in your home, and just really marvel at God's creation and his provision and his creatures, and just the comfort that they can bring us. God gave us, especially dogs, I would argue, to comfort us. They're always happy to see you. You never do anything wrong, right? And your kids and the memories that you have. And so, yeah, we want to advocate for you and your homeschool to have critters in your homeschool, whether they're hamsters or fish or caterpillars or praying mantises. Go forth and get a praying mantis, and or maybe even a little puppy to snuggle with, and see what God does to show off to you in his creation.
Amen to that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And Dixie says thanks for joining her today as she was introduced to the homeschool world. This has been Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. We've been your hosts, Davis and Rachael Carman. And as always, we are walking by faith and enjoying the homeschooling adventure of a lifetime.